Witch of Endor, when desperation leads to the supernatural. King Saul stood on the precipice of his downfall, the weight of his past sins pressing heavily upon his shoulders. Once chosen by God to lead Israel, he now found himself abandoned by the very divine presence he once relied upon. His reign, once filled with promise, had crumbled under the weight of disobedience and pride. The once mighty king who had triumphed over his enemies with divine favor now faced an army more powerful than his own, an army of the Philistines, determined to crush Israel once and for all. But it wasn't the enemy that terrified Saul the most. No, it was the deafening silence of heaven. No longer did God speak to him through prophets or dreams. His once vibrant connection with the divine had turned cold, leaving Saul adrift in a sea of uncertainty. The Philistines were marching closer, and the sense of impending doom grew with every passing hour. In his desperation, Saul did something unthinkable. He turned to the forbidden. Saul, in his darkest hour, sought the counsel of the dead. In a time when God's laws had explicitly forbidden it, he sought out the Witch of Endor, a medium who claimed to have the ability to summon the spirits of the departed. Saul, fearing that God would not answer him, disguised himself and made the journey to the witch's home, far from the prying eyes of his people. When the witch saw the disguised king, she hesitated, knowing the danger of practicing necromancy under Saul's own decree. But Saul, desperate for answers, urged her on. "I need to speak to Samuel," he demanded, "the prophet who once guided me. Bring him to me." Reluctantly, the witch agreed, and as she began her ritual, something extraordinary happened. The air grew thick with tension, and then, before her eyes, Samuel's spirit appeared, a ghostly figure, as real as any living person. The witch, trembling in fear and awe, was shocked. This was no ordinary summoning. Samuel's spirit, unmistakably recognizable, stood before Saul. "What have you done?" Samuel's voice echoed, cutting through the tense silence. "Why have you disturbed me, bringing me up from the realm of the dead?" Saul, overcome with despair, fell to his knees. "I'm in trouble," he confessed. "The Philistines are upon me, and God has turned away from me. I no longer hear his voice, neither through dreams nor through prophets." "I've failed, Samuel. Please tell me what to do." Samuel's response was chilling. "Why do you ask me so? The Lord has already turned his back on you. You rejected his guidance, and now he has rejected you. Tomorrow you and your sons will be with me. The kingdom will be given to another one who will follow God's will." The weight of Samuel's words hit Saul like a dagger to the heart. His worst fears were confirmed. His reign was over. The God who had once called him to greatness was now preparing to strip it all away. But the story didn't end there. Saul's fate had been sealed, and the witch, who had unwittingly played a role in bringing this fate to light, watched as the mighty king was undone, both by his own actions and by the spiritual forces he sought to control. Reflection. The cost of desperation. The story of King Saul and the Witch of Endor is one of the Bible's most haunting and controversial. Why would a king, chosen by God, turn to the supernatural in his hour of need? Why would he consult the dead, an act forbidden by the very laws he was supposed to uphold? And most importantly, what does this story teach us about the consequences of abandoning divine guidance? Saul's actions, driven by fear and desperation, ultimately led to his downfall. His decision to seek answers from the dead rather than returning to God reveals the dangers of turning to unholy sources when facing life's most difficult moment. In his desperation, Saul chose to ignore the fact that God, even in his silence, was still sovereign over all things. Saul's story serves as a stark reminder. When we feel forsaken, the temptation to look for answers in places that promise quick relief can be overwhelming. Yet, as Saul found out, the price of abandoning faith for the supernatural can be far greater than the cost of trusting in God's silence, no matter how painful it may be. What do you think of Saul's decision? Was his desperation understandable, or did it reveal a deeper lack of faith in God? Could there be a time when turning to the supernatural seems like the only option? Let's talk about it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Support our channel by subscribing to Bible Storybook, and God will bless you.